Standing here at the heart of the European Quarter in Brussels, right here behind me is the European Library. And 9 floors below me, deep in the basement, very deep under this parking lot, we find the original copy of the European Acquis. All European legislation that has been acquired over the last 50 or 51 years. It's not open for visitors, but sometimes they allow people to go in. Today though, the talk is not about more regulation here in Brussels, but about better regulation. And that is the theme of a special conference organized by the European Institute for Public Administration and the Bertelsmann Stiftung. More laws is more Europe. For decades, the European Union has been in a race for more and more regulation. Former Commission President Jacques Delors during the 1980s claimed that 80% of all laws in Europe, including national laws, were to be made in Brussels. Nowadays in Brussels and the European Union there is a growing awareness that it's not more laws that are needed, but better laws. There now even is an official better regulation strategy, aimed at simplifying procedures and cutting red tape wherever possible.
It is obvious that what used to be a merely technical and bureaucratic exercise in the past is today our key instrument to change the political culture of European legislation from top to bottom, and by the way, the same way to change the administrative culture in the European Commission, which is more or less unchanged since 50 years.
Cutting red tape and simplifying European lawmaking is not exactly a new topic for the European Union. It's been up on the European agenda for a few years now. This conference now is taking stock of Europe's drive to get rid of excessive and overly complicated rules.
We've had a good free-flowing exchange, we've got ideas, we've had a good frank assessment of where we stand and where we can make still further progress.
As I walked in, I could see that this was a very interesting conference indeed. An audience of people who really knew their subject and were very interested in exploring it were discussing some very high-level issues and in a very frank way.
The ultimate goal of better regulation, of course, is to save money for companies and citizens. The European Commission has calculated the European economy could save as much as 150 billion euros per year if laws are simplified. But the European Commission naturally also is coming under fire, especially from consumer groups who say that the interests of European citizens and consumers are not always represented properly.
If you respect the real official consultation process, you have to wait for a proposal to get out of the Commission in order to be able to influence it. But this is not the case in the real life of the lobbyists. The real game is some sort of a vicious game, is to be the first one to have it, even before it gets out of the brain of the official. And then you're really able to effectively influence the decision-making process. Once it gets official, it's too late to influence anyway.
What really shocked me is that during the process I've done in recent years, I found in how many cases European legislation is triggered by interest groups. Is simply the result of pressure from one interest group. Is presented as something that is important for the broader public, but it is not. In reality, it is the interest of one particular group or even one particular company. It could happen.
We need to make as early as possible in the process open who creates inputs in the process, but also open that process early on for consultation, so that at the end of the day, not only those who are very powerful and have the means can influence basically at the very last point of the process. So I think Verheugen is right on the point. We need more transparency on the process, but also create easier means of access to provide input in the process.
We acknowledge that there are progresses. I mean, that the Commission is making effort to be more transparent, to reach out to different stakeholders. But at the same time, we feel that we are more consulted but less heard. And that has very much to do with the paradigm in which our European policy is made at the moment. There's really a lot of emphasis on growth, on business, on really what is going to create more wealth in society, and not enough on what we call social and sustainable development.
From the beginning, the Commission said that it's not only up to them to make better regulation, but also other institutions and especially member states. And of course, that is true, basically. And Commission has done quite a lot, but not of course everything, because lots has to be done.
They have already achieved a lot, but they will have a long way to go. And I was thinking by myself, well, they have a change next year, so what will they really be able to achieve? So there is a lot of work, but I'm not so sure whether they will really complete the full package.
I don't think we're there yet by any manner or means.
So it's about better rules for the European Union, not about more. Compared to 5 or 10 years ago, there certainly seems to be a change in the awareness among those involved in EU legislation that better rules are needed. But the conference is also showing that there are still issues with, for instance, transparency, with access to documents, and also with the way that stakeholders are consulted. If there's one clear conclusion to be drawn from this conference, it is that better regulation likely is to be a continuous process. Raymond Frenken for EUX TV in Brussels.